Hello, friends, and welcome to Worldbuild with Us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Courtney Staples, and yes, this does mean that Rob wasn't able to join us today, but with me is Daniel Quinn, as well as our guest, Johnny Law, who you might remember back from episode 197 with the mole people. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
And on today's episode, we're going to be starting a prompt from patron Kaiser. But before we get into that, I want to remind you that if you'd like us to build your world, you can go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can fill out a prompt form, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you'd like to follow us on social media, we're on YouTube, where you can like, subscribe, comment, all the good YouTube-y stuff. We're also on Twitter at Let's Worldbuild, and if you'd like to chat with us in a more direct way about world building or anything, really, you can join our Discord server. There's a link for that in the description and on our site. And if you're feeling particularly generous and would like to support the podcast like Kaiser, you can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/worldbuildwithus or follow the link in the episode description. When you become a patron, you'll get benefits like early access to episodes, Too Hot for Broadcast clips that don't make it into the final cuts, and patron-exclusive episodes called the Aphid Lounge, which John has been on a couple of times now. You'll also get 2-part world builds for the prompts that you submit to us instead of just 1-parters, so today's going to be part 1 of Kaiser's setting. And if any of that appeals, check out our Patreon for the full list of benefits, and of course a big thank you to all of our patrons. And John, before we get started, could you tell our listeners what you do and where they can find you?
Sure thing. I pretty much just hang around a house with a bunch of dogs as a job right now. I dabble around in restaurants and things like that and drink a lot. But I can also be found on the YouTubes under Johnny Law, which is my little moniker I picked up over the years. And I make videos about tabletop RPGs and how to infuse better narratives into them. It's actually, I kind of call it Roll for Narrative. And I'm also in the process, it's kind of bogging me down, but I'm getting there, making videos about this wonderful new tabletop RPG that's an indie rules light, amazing web-based game I've been playing online for so long with some really cool people that you guys might know. And that's called Advanced Old School Revival, also known as OSR Plus. Can I say that now? Are we allowed to start talking about this?
Well, I'm sure we'll eventually have a episode where I'm the subject of it. I'm sure.
Hell yeah. I want to be there for that one.
We should do that. That'd be kind of cool if we had the crew, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It would be chaotic.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be good. I was going to say there is nothing quite like hearing Courtney's smooth jazz voice open the episode.
I love it. It's the NPR. I mean, she's got the hms and the uhs down as well. So she's got it's the whole package.
Exactly.
Thanks. Thank you. And now, without further ado, let's get into the prompt. Kaiser's prompt is pretty simple and just reads dark/horror military dieselpunk setting, which leaves us a lot of room for interpretation. And the tenets are, number 1, the setting has to be dieselpunk/blitzpunk, think Wolfenstein. Number 2, the setting has to be heavily focused on the military. And number 3, there have to be super soldiers or failed experiments of some sort. And John, as our guest, could you start us off today? What's your first tenet?
Can I just say how hard it is to come up with stuff when you have so much open space? Like I like to be challenged and penned in. And also, I think he made up the word blitzpunk. I could not find anywhere.
No, that is actually a thing.
Is it?
It's some like sub genre of steampunk/dieselpunk. It's like an alternate history where either the Nazis won or there's some sort of like supervillain still in the picture.
I just kept seeing stuff about the punk group Blitz.
Yeah, I did see that too.
That is a fantastic segue because my tenet is just that. I want to say that this takes place in a post-World War II era where only Japan and the US have exited as superpowers, and most of Europe, Asia, and Africa have been laid to waste.
Oh, damn. Okay. Wow.
So no Nazis. We're going to flip that on. It's always the Nazis win. No, the Nazis, they were all... But somehow Japan and the US were the only ones that got out unscathed. Well, not unscathed, but
as like the major. Interesting.
Huh. Interesting and specific.
Yeah.
I was gonna say we should probably explain what dieselpunk is because I've
Yes.
Googled it a little
Yeah.
bit when I
That's a
looked
good
it up.
call.
Yeah, like from what I understand very broadly, it appears to be a steampunk genre that takes place between the world wars, typically, or it has the stylings of that, and that I think Art Deco plays a large role in its aesthetic. And then the other thing I read is there's two like competing philosophies behind it. One by two different, I believe, writers. One's called Attenzian and one's called Pycraftian. And one of them is about like, hey, there's this kind of rosy view of technology in the same way you might have a retropunk where we're looking back on a certain time period and the technology is utopian potentially. I think that's Attenzian is the utopian one. And the other one has to do with like the aesthetic getting really grimy and dark and horrible as a result of the war. So there's like two directions you can go, it seems like, in dieselpunk.
Interesting.
I totally knew that DQ would go into greater depth in this. I just left the Wikipedia page. I'm like, oh, okay, it's like steampunk, but later. Cool. All right. Good enough for me.
I just want to know, like, what exactly is the distinction here? You know, and obviously the diesel engine is huge.
Yes.
Yeah. So, John, with your alt history setup here, are you picturing it as the more grimy, messed up kind of world, given that it sounds like a lot of the world has been laid to waste?
Well, because he did ask for it to be dark horror, military dieselpunk setting. So yeah, I'm thinking like that the United States probably lost both of its coasts to like basically. I don't know if the bombings of Japan was thwarted or that they retaliated in kind or something like that. Like I'm very open to all suggestions, but I just picture that what ended up happening was all of Europe, most of Africa, and most of Asia all just like kind of imploded, and it just got crushed because of their positioning globally. That Japan and United States were able to, survive in some way and rebuild. I don't know if they are enemies still. I don't. Yeah, I'm open for all that. I was initially like, well, it's always the Nazis. It's always the Nazis win. Whatever. No, I wanted no Nazis. Done with Nazis. I see too many Nazis on a daily basis. Done with them.
It sounds like it's quite Pycraftian then.
Yes.
Yes.
Sounds like it.
Yes. Another question I have. So from what I understand, typically it takes place between the world wars, but we're positing a result of World War II, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the end. Like World War II could have been extended, or maybe it's a Cold War
ongoing
at this point.
Yeah.
I thought when I looked it up, dieselpunk, I thought it said something about the 1950s, like post-war.
Yeah,
where a lot of dieselpunk took place. So that's what I was initially going with, that it was post-war. But once again, like I gave a very specific tenet that I'm open to all the interpretations of it. Just as long as Nazis can eat shit.
Well, we can say it's like maybe it's reached the end of the interwar period and it's an ongoing. It's not really over, and so that's why we're facing such devastation.
But like all the other superpowers, Russia, Great Britain, the Nazis, they're wrecked, and they're probably like zombies or something. If you want to make it horror, I don't know. We'll figure that part out.
Yeah, I was wondering, given like the geographic locations of the two that have prevailed, like if there was some sort of plague or something that traveled around Asia, Europe, and Africa.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of going with too. Just that because I played a lot of Axis and Allies as a kid, so that was the whole thing. America, you just ball up and you get ready to, because your geographical location's so good. Yeah, and I assume like this the in my vision of this setting that the Soviet Union and the Nazis just kind of blew each other up, so Japan was allowed to skirt that damage, so to speak. But we also have to think about resources, because if this is dieselpunk, gas and oil and whatnot is going to be very important. So
yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'm wondering how Japan would deal with that, given that it's a very small island nation.
It mostly taken from Siberia is what I would think, but
yeah, I could see that.
I like the idea too of there being this kind of gulf between these remaining powers, where the world is sort of dormant, and obviously there's the ocean between them too on the other side.
Literal gulfs.
Yeah, but I imagine maybe there's something we could do with that too. Perhaps like the oceans are poisoned in some way, and then
Ooh,
you know.
It's funny that you you bring that up, because that was actually my second tenet.
There you go.
It's basically like something has happened to the oceans that makes them extremely dangerous to traverse. Was mine.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Is it kaiju? Because mine was leading towards kaiju.
I was honestly thinking that it was like something lurks in the deep, but wanted to leave it open to interpretation. But it could certainly be kaiju, yeah.
I mean, even if it was storms, that does add or some kind of like, natural phenomenon that adds a level, because I'm imagining, airships, diesel airships and things like that. And that's probably how they're navigating fighter pilot planes, sort of that retro future thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure diesel airships are called planes, but that might be my ignorance.
Yeah, they're zeppelins. There's
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that definitely works.
Well, what are you envisioning for this oceanic cataclysm? Are you picturing the waters themselves being ruined, or is there some kind of like tempest, or like what's going on?
Yeah, when I first was thinking about it, it was that there was like some sort of something lurking deep below that would potentially attack if you were in the ocean. But yeah, I don't know like what would have caused that. We could also go in a way of like they're just acidic now, or they've been horribly polluted, or something like that.
It could be both, where whatever's in there has poisoned the ocean.
Yeah.
Or it could be that it's a result of poisoning. I mean, much like how Godzilla's, it was a whole nuclear testing created Godzilla. Right?
True. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or like maybe, I don't know, certain bombs got dropped into the ocean and drifted way, way down into some trench and managed to trigger down there and brought up whatever was down there, or woke up whatever was down there.
Mm.
Do any of us have any strong concept of how a diesel engine works? Because I certainly don't.
Nope.
I mean, what do you mean by strong concept? It's combustion. It's
any concept, because I can't even tell you how a combustion engine works.
I have general. Can
you elaborate on that for us? Because for me, I'm just seeing like metal parts moving around and steam popping out.
Well, so no, it's basically the oil burns, and with oxygen, and magic happens, and the car goes vroom. Now, so it does take in air and compresses it and injects fuel into the compressed air. And I'm totally not just reading this off the internet right now.
No.
And the heat of the compressed air ignites the fuel spontaneously.
Okay.
They do not contain spark plugs, diesel engines.
Okay.
So what's the difference between that and like
gasoline?
Yeah, like a gas engine or something. Is it that the spark plugs?
Well, spark plugs are involved, and diesels are not as refined either.
So is it like simpler?
Well, yeah, I believe it's simpler in construction, and it's also the refinement that's involved in the different grades of gasoline is more
the fuel
expensive. But diesel actually costs more because I think the other fuel, because of refining, and also it's not, like watered down, so to speak. Like that's like the different like grades.
Okay. And then is there like benefits to this versus what we have now, or like is there a reason? I don't really know. What's the reason why we stopped using this technology, for example?
Hold on, I'm just thinking really hard here. Well, it's very toxic, first of all.
Okay.
So they, even though we've been cleaning them lately, they're still a major source of air pollution and greenhouse gases.
Are the trucks that use like the diesel fuel at gas stations now, are they the same sort of thing?
Why are they more expensive? I'm getting alternate. So yeah, gasoline engines are lighter and deliver higher performance than diesel engines. It does say, I'm seeing the diesel is more fuel efficient though.
Okay.
And produces fewer emissions, but I think it's like the emissions that they do produce are just that more fucked. Why does the EPA hate diesel?
There we go. So it's not a huge distinction. It's just in the particulars, it seems.
Between diesel and gasoline engines?
Yeah. Right.
Well, there's the spark plug.
Mm-hmm.
is one part. Google.
There's like these technical differences.
So, and gasoline burns faster, which allows it to produce more power or horsepower, whereas diesel fuel is thicker in density, so it evaporates more slowly.
Okay.
But yeah, it has a higher energy density, so therefore it actually, you get more energy from diesel than you do from gasoline. But gasoline can create more power because it burns faster.
Okay. I didn't mean to divert us too far.
No,
I
it's
just
good.
understand.
Yeah.
I think it's smart to have a general idea. But I mean, I think as far as it doesn't really, and from what our standpoint here, we can just think of it as gas. Like we don't have to. I don't think it matters that much.
Just cruder, and it supplants steam engines. A diesel.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it is. It's just a different. It's creating steam in a more powerful way.
Got it.
Is the thing.
Mhm.
Cool. So I'm thinking back to like your poisoned ocean, right? And I'm wondering if for example, because in World War II we have the development of like nuclear power, right? Eventually, so like perhaps in whatever has happened, there's more and more elaborate and powerful diesel engines, and the war that created this devastation made use of such weapons that really poisoned the earth in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good way to go with
And
it.
gave rise to these creatures, perhaps.
Yeah, could even be like runoff from the production, or
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
or maybe it was like getting the oil in the first place is what caused this interruption. Like there's a massive oil leak in the ocean, something like that.
Okay. Or maybe there's like a diesel engine developed that relies on like ocean energy somehow to be coupled with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so the proximity to the ocean could be a problem.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of different ways that we could go with it in the long run.
I dig it.
Well, I've got something to ruin. It's going to make Kaiser very angry. And I live for this because when I'm given a prompt that, for one, has some historical requirement, which already annoys me, and then for two, has technological restraints in science fiction, I have to rebel. So my tenet is there is a race of diesel engine android robots that play a pivotal role in society.
Okay. I think that's reasonable. I mean, it fits with like the dieselpunk vibe, that like sort of Art Deco-y, like Sky Captain look.
Yes.
Are these robots? Are they autonomous?
Yes, I think they're sentient.
So are they the ones that are in Europe right now? Are they?
Oh,
have they taken over, or have they made home in somewhere nicer like the South Americas?
Maybe they could survive in the wasted Middle Earth. You know.
Yeah.
And they're holding all the stockpiles of oil and whatnot there.
Yeah. Maybe they have something to do with the oceans being
Africa.
frozen.
Yeah, they're in Africa.
Maybe they were part of the proxy war, and they're between the nations.
Oh, this actually could kind of. Well, I don't want to get off of this yet and keep going, but this could kind of lead into my second tenet as well. But we can get through this first.
Okay. Do you think that the robots would have rebelled at any point, or did they just happen to have survived? They did. Okay.
I think so. I mean, since you take that direction, I think so. And also, he says that the military is very important in this. So, I mean, like when John was describing them in the middle, I was picturing like Japan and the U.S. as a result of whatever has happened, having control of these weapons and kind of wiping the floor with the middle, and then perhaps they turned against them.
Yeah. Now, like that they deployed these robots, and then they just, I'm going to keep saying robots, by the way. And they, basically at one point, one was like, why am I killing for these assholes? And decided to, start creating their own society, I guess.
Yeah, I'm wondering if like there was any sort of very primitive hacking involved, like thinking to like the Enigma machine.
Ooh.
And how that was used to decipher communications, and maybe something similar was used to like hack into some sort of robotic control that triggered some of this rebellion.
I like that.
Can they have like discovered art as well? Like in parts of Europe, like they're like going through Vienna and they like discover like all these Mozart's compositions.
So cool.
And they're like, why are we fighting?
Maybe they hear music, and that changes them somehow.
Life is beautiful. Fall in love with a player piano.
Maybe the hacking and that are tied together. Like someone hacks one of them to make that possible.
Yeah. It like opens their mind or something to the beauty of life.
They discover Sartre and like existentialism.
Oh man.
I really like these guys.
Yeah,
These
me
are my
too.
favorite guys.
So we've got artistic robots all over Europe and Africa and Asia, just chilling, doing their artsy stuff.
Creating a new renaissance
hmm
in a wasteland.
Yes, I think maybe they seem to be aligned with the powers that have lost, I would say. And maybe they have counterparts that are still under Japanese and American control.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. But yeah, I think they have either they have aligned or they have taken over the place of, like, saying that all these people were wasted across all the middle continents there.
Maybe
Mhm.
they've rallied those people to some extent.
Iron Giant style, like they're protecting them.
Yeah, like maybe there's an alliance between those humans and them because they've discovered art, and maybe they see the art as worth preserving humanity and changing it.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Or I could see them like protecting small settlements that have survived, which is mostly like the more peaceful people rather than the military of those countries.
Because they've only known war since their creation.
Yeah.
Now I know love.
Yeah. I'm picturing them wearing like ragtag uniforms, but they're like friggin' clattering metal.
They like design their own fashions.
Yes, they absolutely do.
I got this in Milan.
Yes.
Or they like graffiti their bodies and paint themselves.
Oh, that's cool.
I was just gonna be so pissed.
No, totally fine. So, John, you said that this ties into your second one?
Yeah, so it ties into my first and this one as well. So I say that the Americans and the Japanese have taken very different approaches to the super soldiers, whether it be some are augmenting their populace or have created these kind of robots, or are creating kaiju, or they created some kind of super crossbreeds of animals. But yeah, I would want both of those two superpowers left to have different approaches towards it. And one could be the robots, or they could have abandoned that since it seems to have failed them and turned on them.
Or maybe they went with like the augmented human idea because the pure robots failed.
Yeah.
So it's like, if we replace this guy's arms with massive robot arms, it's totally fine.
It's still
we just can't give him a robot brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
What does this tenant say about the let me look it up.
There have to be super soldiers or failed experiments of some sort.
Okay.
So
nothing stipulated about them.
No. And but my tenet is just that the Americans and the Japanese have ultimately taken very different approaches to their super soldiers.
Okay.
So one is going to have one kind, and the other one's going to have another kind. And I it could also tie into that ocean things being awoken or whatever. Maybe the U.S. had sent in on the Gulf Stream like these like crazy biologically modified turtles, but then they started growing large and now are like on the loose.
Oh my God, I found a way to bring the Nazis back into the picture.
No Nazis.
Yes. So hear this out. So the Nazis are utterly defeated, which is fine. Maybe they never even came to power in this world. Or maybe they came to power and were defeated preemptively in the war. But perhaps the Nazi artifacts, like the stuff they used to search for, like the vril power and all the crazy shit esoterica, like is under the oceans and or maybe it was unearthed. And perhaps the two remaining powers, the superhumans that they're building, have something to do with that.
Okay.
Like perhaps they've each discovered maybe parts of some Nazi sought after artifact. It doesn't have to be a thing that was made by Nazis, but something that Nazis after.
Well, one of the occult stuff that they were all into.
Yeah, the occult shit. And like maybe there is a few Nazis that they both captured, who have survived that know where this occult stuff is. And that has to do with the superhumans.
That could be the Japanese version, is because they were once allies with them. So
maybe it's the Japanese that have it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they adopted. Now they have like these cool like ghost Unreal warriors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Can I have a third tenet that anime doesn't exist? Can I just throw that in there?
I support it.
I mean, I'm a guest. I get a bonus tenant, right?
Oh,
Like the
totally,
old-
totally. That's how it
Right.
works. Yeah.
Yeah. Anime, manga, it just doesn't exist.
Nice.
Wow. Wow.
They were too busy taking over the
Yeah.
to create that shit.
Yeah. So, yeah, you were saying like maybe some of the stuff like fell into the ocean.
Or maybe it was like originally in the Arctic or something, and the wars
Yeah.
melted the glacial caps, and so they discovered it. I think it's somehow connected.
Yeah. Like I'm picturing that maybe they had a bunch of these artifacts on a huge ship or on a diesel zeppelin type
Yeah.
thing, and it was attacked, and all that stuff was dispersed into the ocean or fell into like the bottom of it, and that's what might have awoken some of what's happening down there.
Yes. Maybe it corrupted things down there.
Yeah, yeah. Spread occult energy around the ocean, made it
Yeah.
dangerous.
I love
Or
it.
maybe it's just like very unpredictable now because it's all this like weird magic shit in it.
Mhm.
Just volatile.
Yeah.
So we're saying at some point during the World War and the defeat of the Nazis, the Japanese recovered some sort of artifacts from the failed Nazis. These artifacts were being transported, but their transport got destroyed and fell into the ocean, and it's created corruption.
Yeah. Or the Nazis were like sending the stuff to Japan as like a last ditch, like you guys have this now, we know we're losing kind
right.
of thing.
How about this? How about the Nazis had unearthed this? They dug up under the Sphinx and found the Anubis basically or something like
Yeah.
that, and that will actually help the downfall of the Nazis in Europe. And then the Japanese were the ones to recover it, but it had already been unleashed as well. So the Japanese have it in a certain sense to use for their super soldiers, but then also it's wild as well.
I like that could have led to the downfall of the Nazis, like their own thirst for this occult
Power.
knowledge. Yeah.
So we could say then that the Japanese sort of turned, like they were allied, but they're opportunists. So they managed to get a hold of it once the Nazis lost control of it.
Maybe that's part of the robot sentience as well, too.
Yeah.
Maybe
Oh,
they have ghosts in them. So because then
Ooh.
that makes sense because it'd be like the Americans sending over all their robot super soldiers across the Bering Strait into Asia, and then they're getting all zombified, and then discovering art and beauty.
So we're saying like their troops come through, the interaction with this artifact is what kind of gives them sentience. Or maybe because I don't want to lose sight of the hacking thing that Courtney mentioned, maybe like there's a scientist or someone who understands how to use that to that effect for them, like use the artifact stuff to end up liberating the machines.
I'm fine with it.
Like some sort of like sentience ray or something that he zaps robots with and opens them.
Yeah,
up.
like he uses the Nazi stuff to liberate the robots. Oh, that might be too complicated. I feel like it's complicated. I just don't want to lose your little hacking thing unless you don't care.
I don't know. That was just an idea. Yeah.
All right. Well, then let's just let the Nazis do it.
Always a solid answer.
Yeah. Oh, they'll just tire themselves out eventually. Just let them do it.
So for my second tenet is that the film industry in this world is booming, rife with propaganda films and movies about war.
Wow. I mean, that makes sense because it's an endless war, right?
Yeah, yeah. But now with like the artistic robots in play, like I'm wondering if they have their own movie renaissance going on.
Rival Hollywood in Europe.
Yeah. Just all robots and artists.
Robot theater. I'm gonna have to make a list of all the shit here for myself so I can understand what we've done.
I've been taking notes, so sure.
Okay, great. I think that's nice from a stylistic point of view because so far we've seen a very like grim kind of, almost like pulp view of the setting. But this adds a bit of not whimsy, but a bit of color to it. That'll be fun because you could then tell a story that's not about like super soldiers killing each other and Nazi artifacts and the world powers fighting each other, but it could be like rival studios and everything else is the backdrop to it if you wanted to tell like a more intimate, smaller story. I mean, there could still be a super soldier. There could still be, a Nazi scientist and Japanese and American soldiers, but the foreground could be this interesting studio battle.
Yeah, that could be cool. Like with the Americans and Japanese producing these like very warlike, like showing victory in wartime and crushing the enemy kind of stuff. And then you got the robot Hollywood that's all about like peace and love and films of the sky and flowers. And
They just make screwball comedies.
Well, maybe, okay, so we know that, I mean, at least from a poetry point of view, like modernism was a reaction to the world wars. And, later than that, we have postmodernism really developing. So perhaps the robots represent a postmodernist movement that is a reaction to all of the horror of war and the machinery of that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And their art.
I like it.
0 0 1 0 0 1 0 0 0 1 1 1 1 1.
That's their postmodernist take.
That was a haiku, actually.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
And Daniel, do you want to give your second tenet?
I think that this is probably already incorporated in there, but I had the knowledge of an experimental diesel engine threatens to end the war, and its warhawks don't want that to happen.
So ending the war as in, would it be like so efficient that there wouldn't be a fight for resources anymore? Or would it be something that would make for enormously powerful planes or bombers or something?
My first thought was that it was the equivalent of an atom bomb as far as the original real timeline goes. So our version of that it would be such a devastating thing or technology for anyone to possess that you'd basically win by default by having it.
Okay.
Could this be possessed by the robots themselves?
Oh, I like that. It could tie back to their original development too. Does that mean that they have the Nazi occult stuff?
Wow.
Because we know Japan is using it to make their super soldiers.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Americans have, but
I think the Americans just have advanced robot technology and access to lots of crude oil.
So their super soldiers were the original robots that they mind control, and then the Japanese must have some kind of magically enhanced soldiers from the Nazi occult powers, right?
Yeah.
Like ninja slash I'm just gonna mix a bunch of Asian cultures together. They've got some magical samurai shit going on, right? Be as cliched as possible.
Those both were Japanese, by the way. So you're still...
ninjas are Japanese? All right, well then never mind. Scratch anything that you thought I said I was racist. It wasn't. So go fuck you, listeners.
Oh my god.
It's okay. I'm not white, so they're past.
Let me show you my not white card.
So yeah, we had talked about how the Americans probably have like human / robot tech, like modified humans.
Yeah. Diesel cyborgs.
Yeah.
Diesborgs.
It's nice.
Borgs. We call them Borgs.
Borgs.
Borgs. So then you're thinking like maybe this secret tech is somewhere in Europe, Africa, Asia, that realm, and like it has something to do with what the robots have from the Nazis? Or maybe they've just been working on their own stuff?
I think to keep it simple, perhaps if we take a step back, the Nazis originally unearthed some kind of occult artifact, right? That threatened to end the war in the past, but it was their downfall. Then the Japanese seems to have stole technology from it to enhance their soldiers. But perhaps before they could actually recover it, the robots got a hold of it, and they've been building this diesel engine with it.
Yeah, I think like it kind of like got split up between.
Yeah.
Well, maybe even three ways. Like maybe the robots took some of it, the Japanese recovered some of it, and then some got unleashed into the oceans to contribute with on top of the pollution.
Maybe the Americans are responsible. They were trying to smuggle it out. This triad of theft. They ended up poisoning the ocean, as we always do.
As we always do.
Typical.
Someone else's problem.
Yep.
I'm picturing like the robots building this diesel tech to use for like cruises or like, you know, leisurely plane rides, not warfare, but the Americans and Japanese can see its potential for actual war.
Yes. I mean, maybe it has something to do with the movies,
Maybe.
you know?
It could also be like space technology.
Oh, we got to add space
Ooh.
into this. Maybe a robot had a dream of filming a movie that would unite the people of the world by going to the moon.
Mm-hmm. And showing how tiny the Earth is in the
Yes.
grand scheme of things.
Yes, and so this diesel engine could take you out of the Earth's atmosphere. It's so
Yeah.
powerful. But they don't realize that it could be used as a weapon.
Or maybe that is the weapon, just the knowledge of how insignificant all this is. And
Certainly from the robot's point of view.
Just get along.
That's cool because it brings it back to the whole movie theme, which I really think has got to be at the heart of this.
Yeah. No, I like that. So to the robots, it's like, oh, we could make these great scientific advancements and go to the moon and show everybody, you know, how vast space is and all this. And the other superpowers are like, no, we just want to use it to blow shit up or like build space lasers or something.
Exactly.
Okay. This is quite the dieselpunk setting we've got going on.
Hell yeah, it is.
I think this is a good time to go back over our tenets and try to remember what the fuck we just talked about. So, John, could you start with your first one?
My first tenet was that this all takes place in post-World War II era, where only Japan and the U.S. have exited the war. Well, have exited as superpowers because the war is still going on, and most of Europe, Asia, and Africa have been laid to waste.
Okay.
Laid or laid? Laid to waste or laid to waste? Laid. And most of Europe, Asia, and Africa have been laid to waste.
Okay. No, and I think we definitely covered that. How do you feel about it?
Oh, I mean, it's not ideal as a future, but I think in this imaginary setting, it's wonderful.
I think it's great. I'm pretty sure that's the frame.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I went next, and that was that the oceans have become extremely dangerous to traverse, and we ended up talking about a lot of pollution and Nazi artifacts, like crashing into the ocean and awakening things down there. And so it's sort of a mix of environmental effects and occult stuff, and possibly kaiju down there or something, maybe. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, we never really settled. We should really define what exactly is going on. I know we've got environmental concerns, obviously. But
Yeah.
do we have kaiju? Do we have monsters? Like, what's the situation?
Like I talked about, maybe the issue is that it's all the occult stuff getting thrown in there has made it just a very chaotic thing. So like it's very unpredictable, which could be in somewhat mundane-ish things like, you know, storms or things like that. But it could also be like you'll just randomly be going along and suddenly it's pure acid for the next mile or things like that.
Got it. So it's more like it is creating more chaos. Not so much that it's summoning Godzilla, but there might be giant squids and things.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
I guess the only thing I'm not clear on is because I guess it depends on where we think these artifacts were originally recovered. But like, could we say then maybe they were recovered like in Antarctica, and that's the melting from all of the environmental damage the war has done? It's melted the ice, and that's what kind of where it is.
I was thinking Africa and Antarctica personally, and I like the idea. Maybe the newer ones, like maybe the original ones, were dug up in Africa, and then
they found more.
The more, as you know, pollution has caused, and the oceans have turned to acid and whatever. Parts of Antarctica are unfreezing, and they're now seeing that prior civilization from 10,500 BC that totally existed in real life.
Which the Nazis are always obsessed with. So that's perfect.
Yeah. I think that works.
Okay. Now I have a good understanding. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't matter.
And then Daniel, your first tenet?
That there's a race of diesel engine robots that play a pivotal role in society.
Yeah, I think that's pretty major component of the setting now.
Yep.
John, your second one?
My second one was that the Americans and Japanese have very different approaches to the super soldiers, as mentioned in Kaiser's third tenet.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that is that one is like pure super robots that have really been mastered, and the other one are humans altered by the occult power. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think that's where we landed.
Yeah, or like America was a blend of human and robot, because like the robots could sort of awaken, and they're the hippies over in Europe now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Diesborgs.
The Diesborgs, yes.
Borgs. There's a term when I was looking at the wiki page that's kind of cool that we could use. That was the style. What was it? Decadence or decadence? Decadence, which is supposed to be Art Deco plus diesel punk, like diesel era. So the word is decadence. And that's cool. Maybe we could call them like decobots or something. Or
Decobots. I like that, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's Art Deco and decadence. It's mixed together.
Interesting.
Decobots, mount up.
I also had another question. Like,
Mhm.
we didn't really define what the artifact is. I mean, and I thought, like, well, I'm thinking X-Files. Remember how they found that oil, the black oil that was basically alien goo?
Mhm.
What if it's like a fuel that's added to a diesel engine that really changes the game, like an ancient fuel or something?
Yeah. Like just a drop of it makes all the
Mhm.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah. That way there'd be multiple places that you can tap it from, and so tapping it from
Yeah.
Antarctica, right, and you're bleeding Antarctica dry, basically.
Mhm. I like that.
Is it the blood of the covenant? Is that where we're going?
Yeah, it's like it's some special blood or something that's ancient, and that's why it's a cult too.
Well, thank you for bringing blood into it.
Courtney's like, I would like to subscribe to your newsletter.
Okay, I denied you of it last time with my prompt, so I felt like
Yeah.
I had to bring it back for you.
Yeah. It's like every time I don't bring up blood in my tenets, it ends up in there somehow anyway. It just happens somehow.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Weird. But yes, I like that it's some sort of ancient blood. I mean, given that oil is just
I know
the
blood.
long pressurized corpses of animals and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So this is some other kind of thing.
It's the pressurization of Atlanteans.
Oh my god.
Because if you mix that blood with the Japanese super soldiers, that's how you get them to be super cool. And maybe like you fuel the decobots in America with the blood.
Okay. So we have Atlantis in here now.
I mean, we had Nazis, so
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
Antarctica.
it could be rumored. It could be rumored to be Atlantean corpses.
Okay.
You know, the Nazis are crazy. Who knows what they thought?
Yeah, they're nuts. So, John, was that
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
okay? Sorry, was that your second tenet? I lost track of where we.
Yeah, that was my second tenet.
Okay, sorry.
That was my doing.
All this talk of blood and other
Yeah.
things.
Was it
I
hot
got her all
here?
bothered. I know.
So my second one was that the film industry in this world is booming. There's tons of propaganda and military movies, which I think it works in the setting that we developed, and I think it fits well with the robots in Europe, Asia, Africa being so obsessed with art and peace. And I do like that idea of the one robot having a vision of going to the moon, making a film up there.
I love how that's become. I think that tenet really is the thematic heart of the setting. Like everything you design from an adventure or storytelling perspective would have to lean on that, because
Yeah.
if you thought of it as like an RPG setting you buy or something, like a module, like the sell here is it's like this is not just another interwar kind of setting. It's about the movies and propaganda and what does it mean to have an imagination during wartime. I think that's a cool concept for a setting as opposed to like your standard war setting.
Yeah. Like the war is more the backdrop, and this is the imagination and wonder and appreciation of beauty is the goal.
Yeah.
Have all those cool Art Deco posters and stuff in the book, and the Art Deco art.
Yeah. And I do like that focus on the film aspect, because it does feel like in a lot of like war-oriented fantasy and sci-fi stories, the propaganda aspect isn't always all there, even though that's like a huge part of war. And hyping up your population and getting them to think that people on the other side of the world are pure evil, just with the power of movies.
Yes, and I don't think I've ever heard of a setting like that before, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
Power of cinema.
Yeah.
You could also have musicals.
Oh my god.
Robot musicals.
Yes.
Is that where the dark horror aspect of this prompt comes in?
I love musicals. I love them.
And there is like what are they called when like celebrities and artists go to military bases and perform and stuff? Like that's
like
a common.
USO? Yeah, USO shows.
Yeah, like boost the morale and stuff like that. So I can see that happening too with America and Japan as well. And Daniel, your last tenet?
This was that there is knowledge of an experimental diesel engine that threatens to end the war, but the powers don't want that to happen. And I think we had decided this is the moon rocket or whatever it is that this robot's going to use to film their movie and create a message of world peace, but it in fact can be used as a weapon of war.
Yep. I like that. And I think it leaves a lot of room for us to build on next time with the implications of that technology.
And what it is and all that.
Yeah. So now that we've gone over the tenets, I'm going to roll the twist that we can work off of for next time. The twist is that cults are involved.
Oh, well.
We already did that twist.
It seems quite natural.
Yeah. I guess it will. I was thinking that we kind of have strayed from the dark horror military.
Yeah, it's true.
Part of the prompt. So I think that having the refocus on the cults and what that means, and like maybe it's only a matter of time before that blood actually starts affecting the robots.
Yes.
Like maybe they're doomed to, follow the path of the predecessors, the humans.
Yes. Well, and the other thing this could transform, if you think of the thematic heart, the development of the first horror movie.
Oh, interesting. That's very meta.
Yeah. But I love that blood idea.
I do too. Yeah. Though I think technically the first horror movie is older, right? I mean, Nosferatu's one of the oldest.
Yeah. But this will be like the first Hollywood fanfare horror movie. Yeah.
And we can figure out what kind of spooky movies they're making next time.
I love it. Oh, should we bring a movie that because we normally do factions?
Oh yeah.
Should we bring a film that's being developed in this world?
I would say, well, we have cults too that are involved. So I guess that's the twist.
The cults could be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're cult movies.
Cult movies.
Didn't say what kind of cults.
Oh, you're right.
Oh man.
I mean, we can explore the cult angle for sure, but a movie that each faction's developing, because I could also let you speak to a faction.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's each make a movie studio and a movie that they've made.
Yes.
Great idea. Well, on that note, I think that's going to do it for this episode of World Build with Us. Again, thank you to Kaiser for this prompt. I know that we went off the rails a little bit there, but I hope you still like it. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. Remember that if you'd like us to build your world, you can visit worldbuildwithus.com to submit a prompt. And within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you want to check out our YouTube channel, we're at Worldbuild with Us on there, and you can follow and like and all that. You can also find us on Twitter at Let's Worldbuild, or if you'd like a place to chat with us directly and meet other listeners, you can join our Discord server with a link for that in the description. And of course, if you're feeling particularly generous, like Kaiser, you can throw money at us on Patreon at patreon.com/worldbuildwithus. You'll get benefits like a patron-only Discord channel, those patron-exclusive Aphid Lounge episodes, 2-part world builds for the prompts you submit, and more. And a big thanks to all of our patrons for your ongoing support. That's going to do it for this episode of World Build with Us. We'll see you next time when we're dealing with cults and movie studios. Remember that we love you very much, and we're going to get through this together. Until next week.